Alpine Touch. Hi, I'm Shotgun Tom Kelly. Welcome to episode 3 of the Alpine Touch, as we continue our journey through the first 15 years of Alpine's history. In this final episode, we're going to be talking about Alpine's USA activities from 1990 to 1994. Alpine had a tremendous first 10 years and was methodically taking steps to expand business relationships and balance positioning in the aftermarket and key OEMs. Back with me right now is former Alpine Executive Vice President David Black and his former Vice President of Technical Development, Rich Coe.
We're back.
Well, howdy, howdy.
After the first 10 years, it seemed like Alpine was on autopilot. But then, in 91, we had the Gulf War.
2 a.m. local time, Iraqi troops crossed the eastern border of Kuwait.
Iraq has moved into Kuwait with more than 100,000.
President Saddam Hussein commands over 1 million combat-tested troops.
This will not stand. This will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait.
Did this have any impact on general operations?
It really did.
Yep, sure did.
It was just, we had something that was almost cookie cutter going for, the first 10 years of this project. And all of a sudden, we had to make a big decision here because that Gulf War was one of those things where, the airlines were talking about reducing flights. They were talking about reducing all the activities at the resort hotels, et cetera, et cetera. And we sat at board level and had to make a big decision. And that is, do we continue on under these circumstances and have dealers maybe not show up or put them in harm's way? Are we subject to lawsuits? Are we subject to this or subject to that? Anyway, bottom right-hand corner, after 10 years and a heck of a good time, we decided to go pull the plug on the national sales meeting temporarily.
The one in Kona.
We were headed to Maui, I believe, that year. And that would have been our second trip to Maui, or maybe even third trip to Maui. And it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating because the way we marketed those meetings was not just for coming over for educational purposes. We had direct communications with all of our dealers' wives. We made sure that they were told all the time how well their husbands are doing as far as making their sales budgets this year, because they knew darn well that a trip to Hawaii was in their future if they made their budgets. And it was an all paid for two, so it was a great deal. So going back home and saying, well, we're not going anymore because Alpine, you better have a good excuse. Well, this gave a necessary excuse because we don't want to put any of these guys into danger. So instead of flying 700 dealers to Maui that year, we decided we're going to go ahead and take that money and reinvest it in other areas. And those other areas at that point were into promotions, into schooling, and into an education center, that Rich was involved with. And then we put incentives together for the first time for who? The installers. We actually did incentives for those guys. Right. And it was one of those things that it was pretty easy to do, but we took the top installers in the country with the criteria that we had developed at that point in time, and we threw them in race cars up in Monterey for 2 days. So they had a little driving experience along with a lot of technical service discussions. I would say that under normal conditions, that was probably one of the more riskiest things we have done because of what was going on, but that war really gave us almost a necessary change in direction so that we could maybe wait and maybe it's going to be okay and bring it back in another couple of years, or just basically move on, because it was the growth period, the introduction period of the company was basically over. We were a brand at that point in time. And when you're a sophisticated brand and you've been a mature brand, there are certain things that have to change. And we had to go along with it.
By '89, Alpine's brand had established itself as a solid player in the aftermarket mobile electronics category. How did Alpine Corporate shepherd its ongoing market expansion with OEM and car makers?
So Jim O'Neill and I, we were both board members at that point in time. He was my counterpart on the OEM side. And what we had made a decision to do at that point was, for the first time ever, we started walking a little bit closer to the OEMs, other than from the aftermarket point of view, rather than what we had been doing in the past, which was almost like we were fighting with them, which we really weren't, but it felt like it. So we started seeing situations like Mark Levinson starting to show up out there.
Right.
There was several other of the home audio guys that were actually relabeling their products that looked like it was a home audio brand, like Macintosh, Mark Levinson, you name it, they were already out there. Well, we had this massive relationship, big time OEM relationship with Honda. And Honda had been coming to ask us all the time, why can't we use the Alpine brand name in our audio systems here? Don't you want that kind of exposure? And it was always, it's okay to put it in your literature, please don't put it anywhere on the product. This year was the year we permitted the brand name to be used on the product too. So it was audio by Alpine. That really was kind of not going all the way into the OEM area, but it was partially there, and it created a new handshake. And it also gave us a little bit of leverage against the Macintoshes and the Mark Levinsons and the other folks that were co-branding at that period of time.
Right.
But this also was the end of the Lamborghini relationship because Lamborghini had been sold. We finished off the Diablo. There was no more work to be done there. And that ended up being kind of a head scratcher for a lot of people. Why did you guys go away from those guys? It was not our decision at all. This was a decision that was made by the new owner of Lamborghini, which at that point was a Saudi Arabian company, I believe.
Although we did influence it.
We did.
We made a deal with Lamborghini that if we put our product in their car, they'd let us use their logos and all the other stuff. And we were sending them CD players. And then in Japan, all of a sudden they decided to send them cassette players instead. It's like telling somebody, no more V8, you get a 4-cylinder.
Yeah, that happened. It was a rather scary situation, at least from a marketing point of view then. But it was handled, I think, pretty well. And again, Lamborghini was going through all these exercises as far as ownership and whatnot. And if you take a look at that company today versus where it was back then, the Lamborghini company today is a unbelievably well-run company, but it's also owned by VW. And there's plenty of money out there to pretty much do anything they want. Audi VW, yeah. And you take a look at the new Lamborghinis that are out there, they're absolutely fabulous. Fabulous. So here it was, first time in 10 years, it's time to go ahead and start addressing this OEM situation. But I think in hindsight being 2020, it couldn't have been handled any better. I think O'Neill was extremely sensitive on the OEM side to what we were trying to do on the other side because we helped him, a lot as far as the branding. And from that point, you cannot believe what changed because initially the aftermarket back when we were starting at the company was maybe 60% of the sales, maybe 70% of the sales, and OEM at 30. And then by the time we got to this period that we're talking about right now, actually it was 1-to-1. That was an objective, try to have aftermarket and OEM at the same time, but boy, the speed in which OEM was growing was off the charts. So if we didn't get on that choo-choo train real quick and make sure that we protected the position we had with Honda and these other OEMs, we were dead. So it was the right decision to make. And I think under the circumstances, you talk to most of the dealers out there now, they'd say, yeah, that you guys had to do that. No choice.
What were some of the steps that were taken to make the transition for the aftermarket dealers?
Okay, one of the big ones I mentioned earlier in one of the other episodes, the fact that we had developed a CD changer, that we put a OEM sensitive or aftermarket sensitive connection on it.
That's right.
How that happened, though, is pretty interesting. Cesar and I were in a discussion, I guess is the best way to put it, overseas, and we were talking about what would be the best way for us to name the new changer and have it actually integrate in with the OEM side and the aftermarket side.
Right.
They wanted a special name for this thing. We were sitting at a bar and he says, before we leave this bar, Dave, we're going to come up with a name. Now, give me a name. I'm going, man, I'm half, in the tank. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. Anyway, we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. It was right about the time that the Challenger accident happened.
Oh.
And it occurred to me, whoa. Cesar says, yeah, that was a shuttle, right? And I said,
Shuttle.
shuttle, shuttle, shuttle. And literally at that bar that night, that is how that thing was named, believe it or not. So it became the Alpine CD shuttle, and it went to both directions. It went to OEM and
Right.
aftermarket too. Colossal win over a beer. We had an older guy that was getting ready to retire.
He was a
Milwaukee.
bomber pilot from World War II.
But he's an engineer now, okay, and a delightful human being for sure. And he brought his idea, to match the CD shuttle type of situation. That was the cassette shuttle.
Oh,
You laughed at this thing. We went, oh my
yeah.
God.
When I first saw that, I thought, what the hell is this? What is this for? Somebody pissed somebody off or what? And cassette changer, cassette shuttle.
Yeah.
Who wants to put 6 cassettes in a unit and go between cassettes?
I'll tell you who did.
Who is
You
it?
got to remember one thing with with the old guys. They look back at their experience pretty much like we're looking at this experience too,
Right.
and they bring up the things that are really important to them.
Right.
One of the things that was important to Watanabe was he was one of these guys that was building a lot of product that was really working in Europe.
Right.
And you know what? Europe was still selling cassettes. And so were parts of Asia, and so were parts of Brazil and Latin America, that whole thing. And so it made sense to him, why not offer that as an additional product? We looked at it and went, huh, this doesn't belong here at all. But actually, we brought it in. I think we sold about half a dozen pieces or something like that. But that was his Atago Watanabe-san.
They
and
told
that
me at
was it.
CES, we want you to get up here in front of the media and represent this. I walked out the front door.
Is that
Oh,
right?
you did not. You
Yeah, I
never
did. They
No.
sent Dean Foster after me to bring me back. And I told him, I says, Dean, I'm not going to stand up there and say this thing's worth shit. But Watanabe did some weird stuff. He also invented a golf cart that basically you could almost just talk to and have it run along with you on the golf course. And so Watanabe did this thing. He had it upstairs and he turned it on and it took off across the room so fast. Nobody could even come close to catching it, and it buried itself in the wall.
There were other elements that were really more marketing elements that we were kind of worried about
Right.
too. And that is that the demographics, since we've been around for 15 years,
Right.
the demographics are really changing. The kids that grew up in this whole thing, like Rich and I, we were 15 years older at that point in time. And we do have a library of cassettes and stuff. And the demographic is getting older and older and older. And what do you do with those people? Do you try to make life better for them by offering these kind of products, or you just ignore them and move on? So there was a little bit of that had an effect on the way we were operating it as well. But the most important thing was really the Latin American markets, because those were cassette, and they were going to stay cassette basically for another 5 or 6 years. No question about it.
Sure changed down there now, though.
It has.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
The marketing plan for Alpine's aftermarket had a formula, especially with the baby boomers moving on to new product categories.
The new product category for the car audio or mobile electronics,
Right.
that's the difference. It went from car audio to mobile electronics, meant that this is infotainment that is starting to happen now. Infotainment is not audio. It's audio, it's navigation, it's all this other stuff that's going to be happening.
Right.
It was starting to hit with the streaming area. So we really had our hands full from a product development point of view, engineering point of view, et cetera, and trying to get closer and closer and closer to what was going on up in San Jose. And it was scary. It was absolutely scary. The OEMs did not want to integrate to anything into what was going on in San Jose, but it was almost impossible to avoid. And you see what's happened since then.
I'm one of those boomers. Everyone I knew just couldn't get enough of Alpine. It was really a big deal.
But we were really strong in the audio side and not quite so strong at that point in time in the infotainment side.
Oh, I see.
So it was requirement of us to take the company and move it into this additional direction, take advantage of all those 80 million baby boomers that are out there, so that we could provide them, not only from an aftermarket point of view, but also from an OEM point of view, with infotainment products like navigation. One of those products we had was a voice-activated, not GPS, but a voice-activated navigation system.
Oh,
you actually talked to it and it told you where to go. There wasn't a map, there wasn't anything else. It actually also played games for the kids when they were in the car. They played blackjack. They did all kinds of weird little things. It was interesting, part of this infotainment discussion. We didn't proceed with it, but these were all under consideration.
You know, backseat entertainment and navigation had a new appeal, but they both came with a whole new set of regulations. Now, what were some of those challenges?
From a technical point of view, Rich's team, we had no choice. We had to follow the bouncing ball here because there wasn't a data port on any of the aftermarket products at that point in time to be able to do these other things. J1939 and CAN bus and all this other stuff had to be incorporated into our products at that point in time so we could be able to plug and play all these other things that were going on in the marketplace. So it was a massive, massive change in our product development side.
So how was this addressed with the aftermarket?
Alpine was part of the Mobile Electronics Association in Washington. The OEMs had finally infiltrated, if you want to call it that particular group. And the OEMs for the first time were giving us a porthole, the J1939 porthole. They were giving us access to what was going on inside that car for our products. We couldn't touch any of the engine management or the rest of that stuff, but for our products there was an ability finally to be able to get involved in that stuff. But it took a lot of time to happen. So we get the green light to go ahead and do that kind of stuff. It may take 5 years for the product to finally show up in the marketplace. So we started a lot of new thinking, a lot of new engineering on all those products right about that point in time.
So the transition from analog to digital for the auto industry was a huge mess.
There's problems because people are coming out with their different digital formats. Analog is analog.
Right.
So the problem is somebody comes out with a new digital format, it may work with their stuff, but nobody else's. So there's a lot of problems out there with working with other branded products. Mm-hmm. And the same with working with some of the cars. I mean, some of the digital products that people are bringing out, you put them in a car that's got digital, it needs a whole converter. They have to change the whole thing. So, and there's a lot of digital programs that are available for cars now that are mediocre. There's problems with them.
There are things going on with the car companies now where they've got code hopping technology. It's going to start coming into the actual bus lines. So in other words, if you develop a product that actually will translate analog to digital for that stuff, it may not work every single time because every time you turn your car off, it's like a security system, it code hops. And it's got a different communication process. That is a mess if that happens.
There's a lot of problems with interface.
Yeah, it is just, it's going to take a lot of settling down, I think, before life changes, but it will change.
All right, now it's time for the bonus round. Who were the key influential people in your life?
For me, Paul Starry was influential. Of course, the staff at Alpine was very influential. Because that was the first family that I worked with then.
In '81, the home audio company Luxman was a part of the Alpine group. What was that all about?
Alpine bought Luxman. Luxman got in money trouble, and I went to the Luxman factory. And they spent a lot of money, they wasted a lot of money down there. They had these big listening theaters and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And they were making good products, but they were burning it faster than they could make it.
Part of Alps was just building these transports and stuff.
Sure.
And Luxman decided to get into the home cassette business. And they bought a ton of those transports from Alps to be able to put in the home audio cassette decks, okay? Guess what? Couldn't pay the bill.
Oh.
Yeah, they got in money trouble.
You know what the trade-off was?
What was that?
We meaning Alpine, ended up getting the marketing responsibility for Luxman in the United States.
How did the other global Alpine groups do in their brand introductions?
I think everybody that I talked to, all of the 15 guys that we met with on our trips, were pretty much on the same trajectory as we were. It was working really well. I want to take credit for that a little bit because, again, the U.S. was influencing so much that was going on, and it was working for everybody.
They looked to us for some of their answers.
They really did.
Isn't ambient noise in cars a real challenge, and how did Alpine address that subject?
Ambient noise issues. Have you ever rolled a front window down about this far?
Oh, yes.
And what you hear in the car is
Boom, 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 boom,
thump,
boom.
thump, 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 thump,
Yeah.
thump. What that is that's a Helmholtz resonator.
Oh, look at you.
In other words, like blowing on a pop bottle.
Yeah.
And the inside area of a car is fairly large. So when you roll that window down far enough, what you get is a big pop bottle. It'll actually make you sick inside the car.
All the OEMs were very interested in having noise canceling technology because that road noise, if they could get rid of it,
Right.
with that audio system and everything else, would just sound
Right.
terrific. The problem was they couldn't spread that noise canceling over the entire cavity of the car. It was very individual, so each person could get it, but you couldn't do it the whole way. And do you remember that chamber that we jumped in, where had that foghorn going like a son of a gun?
Yeah.
This guy gets in there, and of course, the prankster of the year, he gets in this chamber, and Tom, I kid you not, it had to be close to 100 dB.
Wow.
But he couldn't hear it.
He couldn't hear it?
He was inside this chamber, and it canceled out.
Wow.
And I got in this thing thinking, of course, that he was just BSing me, and I did it, and by gosh, my hair was moving, everything was going on, but I couldn't hear anything that was going on.
Wow.
But again, it didn't work
It was out of phase.
throughout the cavity. It was only at the driver level.
Wow.
Yeah, out of phase everywhere else.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you look at two door speakers
Yeah.
that are looking at one another, here's one sine wave, right? Here's the other one. They're out of phase right over the seats. So you have a big hole in the audio.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
There's a lot of acoustic things. If you bounce a tweeter off a windshield, it's in phase, out of phase, in phase, out of phase. I mean, there's all kinds of acoustic issues that happen in a car. But even at that, you can still work around them and get a really good sound.
Were there any 12-volt suppliers who you thought would make it but didn't?
Well, I thought Nakamichi was going to do really good, but the company got sold to the Arabs, and they ruined it.
Oh, no.
And now it's owned by the Chinese, and the Chinese license it out to people to go sell their stuff.
There was a couple that I thought should have made it but didn't. But their balance was just the opposite of Alpine's. Alpine had a much stronger aftermarket initially than their OEM, but a company like Fujitsu 10, they were almost 100% OEM at the point in time when they started to do their own aftermarket products here, and they failed. That shouldn't have happened. That company should have
Well, that's
worked.
because they wouldn't deal with their issues. They wouldn't deal with them. They wouldn't go up the gut. And if they had a problem acoustically, figure it out, do an answer, and apply it to the product. They didn't do that stuff. I worked for Fujitsu 10 for a while. And I had a concept for them that I thought was worth $1 billion. And that is, it came when I worked on the Auto PC with Clarion. I had a chance to work with some really good computer engineers. And I told them, I said, okay, so you get out, you walk out the door, you get in your car, you start the engine. Then the system looks at you and says, Rich? You say, yep, it just saw my voice print, it's me. System comes up. I'm leaving the parking lot and I say, answer my emails for the day at home. Because smart home and smart car are going to go together. And I said, answer my emails at home. So it answers your emails, and now with speech to text, as good as it is, you can answer them back. When I first started working with Learnout and Houseby on the Auto PC microphone, it was a piece of shit. And it didn't work very well at all. I found a digital array that I had a four-wheel drive Suburban. I could drive down the 710 freeway between two semis with my windows down and still have 80% recognition.
Really?
Because what it did was it took all the audio that came in off axis from the sides, set it to common mode and canceled it. The audio that was in line with your voice, it was not canceled at all. So what it did was it had cancellation, eliminated all this noise out here, and would listen to you. So I told these guys, I said, okay, so now you're in your car, you're on your way home, it's reading your emails to you, and you say, what is the security status of the house? The house is digital. It tells you that there's nobody's broken into the house. What's temperature? Raise temperature to 72 degrees. Since you're in your car, you have navigation, the house knows where you are. As you come around the corner to the house, the garage opens, the lights turn on, you drive your car in, and it was just a conversation that you had on the way home. and it can go. And I asked the guys at Toyota, I says, you ever have anybody come in to buy a Corolla and they want a full-blown audio-video navigation system in it? The guy says, yeah, all the time. And I says, why don't you sell it to them? Because the radio already came in the car. I see. So you ever get a guy come in and ask for a Lexus to have a cheap double-digit radio put in the dash? Yeah. Why don't you sell that to him? Don't tell me. And I told him, I says, you can start out with a $299 in-dash head unit that has a large ROM table. It has a bus connection on the back. Doesn't have to play any software or anything. And basically it plugs into a bus down here. If you want navigation, you can go out and buy a Tyco card right now. Navigator card, 12 satellites. Plug it in, plug and play. You can add Bluetooth if you want to. You can add whatever you want to the system. A guy comes in and he qualifies himself as rhythm and blues, or he's into punk or whatever. You can tune his system with the push of a button for his genre.
Yeah.
And his car is now tuned for him when he picks it up to drive it home.
Wow.
All those things are available to do right now. It's just a matter of doing it. This stuff is all moving towards one direction, and that's complete wireless. And where it's moving is it's moving eventually to where everybody has their own little space of technology that they can access, and it's going to be wireless. And that's going to be driven by artificial intelligence and the new formats that are coming out with broadcast frequencies, and the new types of receivers that we're getting that are smart receivers, not just a radio that you're picking something up with, but smart receivers. So there's a huge area of growth opportunity in the industry when it comes to subwoofers and acoustics in the car. That's going to go through another morphing. That's going to move into a place where these tiny little cars are actually going to be better environments for making audio in than the big cars are. And as far as mid-range and tweeters, you can only do so much with a mid-range and tweeter. People are mounting them on the A-pillars now. They're going to come out with ways that you can mount these things on axis so that the people in the front of the car are getting nice imaging. And it's very difficult if you have great imaging in the front to have great imaging in the rear also. So it still leaves an opportunity for the installing specialist to make these cars special in their own rights. As cars are becoming more advanced, the manufacturers of these cars are trying to put subwoofers in them, but there's not really much space for that, and they don't want to spend a lot of the charging system on the car running bass amps. So you're going to see some changes in power amplifiers and stuff, but it's mostly going to be amplifiers that are native to the car, because they're actually modules that you can plug into. And you're going to have the aftermarket subwoofer, which is going to be around forever, basically. People love bass. And that then boils down to the installer that has to learn all the details of in phase, out of phase, how acoustics work inside the car, where's the best place to put woofers, how can I extend the bass deeper in a small box. I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and a lot of that's going to be answered in DSP, which again is a digital solution. F1 Status, where Alpine is today, is good product. It's digital product. They have a lot of investment in DSP. It's able to do the same things that the best systems did in the past because they don't have to use just Alpine. They can use different components of Alpine with different components from other manufacturers. So if Alpine doesn't have a 4,000 watt bass amp, they can go get one from Kicker or from somebody else. But F1 Status, it runs into a kind of a wall with itself because it requires a lot more focus to set it up in the installation bay. You don't find a lot of entry-level installers out there using laptops for tuning DSP. That's a whole new thing. So manufacturers out there that are looking for a way to further their investments should be working with the dealers on the street on DSP, how to simplify it. And as artificial intelligence comes into this, artificial intelligence will pick up a lot of that. And they'll start tuning the systems automatically. So you see, it all comes together eventually. And Alpine actually helped me to grow a lot, because I had to learn how the marketing worked inside the company and how that applied itself to the product development. If you see the vision and you see what it's supposed to be, do it. Just do it. Just pursue it.
You know, a buddy of ours leaked some exciting trade news about you two. I was told that both of you were inducted into the Mobile Electronics Hall of Fame, class of 25. Now, what's the deal? Is that real?
It's real. It happened. I had to go back there, and except for him because he couldn't get there. Believe it or not, of the total inductees in the Mobile Electronics Hall of Fame, Alpine has 20% of the inductees.
Is that right? Wow.
Over and out.
Hearing this history, some I knew, some I didn't know. It was richly rewarding. Thank you so very much, guys.
Mr. Kelly,
Well, thank you.
we
dude.
both appreciate not only this, but everything that you have done for us. Hey, you know, one of the most important relationships that Alpine had during its first 15 years was its marketing relationship in a co-branding condition with Lamborghini. We have brought back 4 of those original Lamborghini posters and are making them available to you guys through the Alpine Touch website. So if you're interested in them, please go there and sign up for them. We'll get them to you right away. Rich and I hope you guys have enjoyed the Alpine Touch first 15 years. It was a really special time for us, and I hope it was special for you as well. I want to take this time to thank the Alpine employees, the Alpine reps, the press that we love so dearly, and of course, the dealers. They were absolutely fantastic. But probably the most important thing is you. You guys are the ones that helped make it happen for us, because you helped define for every single one of the Alpine people the difference between car stereo and car audio. Thanks again. Love you.
The Alpine Touch.